Today, we will talk about the role of seafood in Japanese cuisine. Japan's rich history with food involves influences from other Asian countries and naturally incorporates fish and other seafood. Today, Japan remains a top consumer of seafood, and its citizens benefit from regular meals that include fish, shellfish, and other aquatic species. Food history. The story goes that rice was introduced into Japan from Korea around 400 BC, and within 100 years, it had become the staple food of Japan. It was also later used to make paper, wine, fuel, building materials, and other items. China was soon supplying soybeans and wheat, two ingredients that are now integral parts of Japanese cooking. Along Japan's journey of development, tea, chopsticks, and a number of other important food-related items were also introduced from China. In the early 6th century, Buddhism became the official religion of Japan, and the eating of fish and meat was prohibited. During the 8th and 9th centuries, the number of regulated meats increased to the point that all mammals except whales, which were categorized as fish, were off limits. Fish consumption. Being an island nation, Japan used fish as a readily available source of food. With no reliable refrigeration available, the problems of preserving and transporting fresh marine fish minimized consumption in inland areas, where freshwater fish were commonly eaten instead. Sushi originated as a means of preserving fish. Fish were salted and placed in rice, thus preserving them by lactic acid fermentation that prevented bacteria growth. By the 15th century, a shorter fermentation period made both the fish and rice edible, so sushi became a popular snack food. Sushi without fermentation appeared during the Edo period, 1600 to 1867. Surimi, minced and refined fish muscle, had its origins in Japan in the late 12th century, and the country remains a top producer. The fish meat paste is frozen into blocks that are manufactured into various products by specialist operators. Tempura, fried seafood with vegetables, was brought to Japan in the 16th century. Aquaculture. Aquaculture in Japan was initially recorded with the seabed sound cultivation of oysters in the Seto Inland Sea in the middle of the 16th century. Farming of edible seaweed, nori, was started by fishermen living in Edo, Tokyo, at the end of the 17th century. In the middle of the 19th century, semi-intensive carp culture in rice paddy fields began, as well as eel farming in ponds. Japan continued to broaden its oyster production by cultivating pearl oysters in 1893. After 1910, the production of full-orbed pearls was made possible due to technical developments, which have since been adopted by pearl farms worldwide. From the 1950s, hanging culture with long lines was developed due to its resistance to high waves. This technique was also utilized for the cultivation of larger seaweeds, such as Japanese kelp. Health and seafood. Over the years, studies have shown that men in Japan have lifetime cholesterol, blood pressure, and type 2 diabetes rates, similar to those for men in the United States, and they are far more likely to smoke. Yet the rate of heart disease among men living in Japan is less than half that of men living in the United States. Those Japanese men also tend to have less atherosclerosis, the artery clogging plaque that leads to heart attacks and strokes. Why? The answers are all about seafood consumption. A study by Dr. Akira Sekikawa and colleagues published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology compared the health of men in Japan and the United States. It included 281 Japanese men living in Japan, an equal number of Japanese men living in the US, and 306 Caucasian men who lived in the US. All the men were in their 40s, and all underwent blood testing to determine serum levels of fatty acids, including omega-3s. While total fatty acid levels were similar in the three groups, blood omega-3 levels in the Japanese men living in Japan were 45 and 80% higher, respectively, than in Japanese men, and white men living in the US. Measures of atherosclerosis showed less plaque buildup in the arteries of the Japanese men living in Japan. Atherosclerosis levels were similar in both Japanese Americans and in white Americans, which indicated the lower death rates from coronary heart disease in Japan are very unlikely due to genetic factors, Sekikawa said. These findings lend support to the theory that omega-3s, which are found primarily in fatty fish like tuna, mackerel, and salmon. Protect against plaque buildup in the arteries. Omega-3 fatty acids come from fish oils, which contain docosahexaenoic acid (DHA), eicosapentaenoic acid (EPA), and plant sources. Alpha-linolenic acid (ALA), which is converted into omega-3 fatty acids in the body, is a plant source omega-3 fatty acid. Supplemental omega-3s. Unfortunately, since the end of World War II, the Japanese diet has become increasingly westernized. However, fish consumption in Japan is still among the highest in the world. People there eat an average of 85 grams of fish every day. In the United States, the average American finds it difficult to manage the 2 weekly servings of fish recommended for heart health by the American Heart Association. Researchers have also said that the average 1 gram daily omega-3 intake in Japan is about 8 times higher than the amount the typical American gets. Seafood in Japan. Because of their traditions, people in Japan are much more knowledgeable about seafood than those in the West. It is part of their daily diets, so they deal with seafood all the time. Generally speaking, the Japanese are focused on quality and food safety due to the fact they like to eat fish in the raw state. A trip to the old Tsukiji fish market in Tokyo reflects this interest in seafood. It is easy to spend a day browsing through the myriad stalls, shops, and sites of Tsukiji. The market tour has become a tourist favorite, and the retail market and restaurants that surround Tsukiji have done remarkably well as a result. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.